Kevin Clark, I'm sorry. Kevin Clark, he had a great tweet, which is the Seahawks don't play normal games, right? They just don't. And the other part, and I think Beyer can attest to this, is we always talk about every Seahawks game looks the same. It's some kind of a mess, and then Russell Wilson trying to run around and make a play at the end of the game. And most times it felt like it worked out for him, especially in Seattle. Is that fair, right? If you think back, like plug your memory banks. Obviously, the most memorable was the comeback against Green Bay in the NFC Championship game when Aaron Rodgers had a torn calf muscle, and they were super conservative, and the Packers weren't able to corral an onside kick, and the Seahawks ended up going to the Super Bowl. Do you guys remember that? Like, that's the signatures every game. They also had the inner touchdown. Also, that was also against the Packers, wasn't it? Was that the Packers? Right, touchdown in the end zone is interception, whatever. Crazy things happen Sunday nights, Monday nights in Seattle, even Sunday afternoons. But the end of game decision making, when to call a timeout, what to do, I thought was a perfect embodiment of what many of us will experience in our life, especially when you're young or when something's new. Because we all think that we're ready for that moment. We're ready for the big job. Then you get the big job, you get hit with that first big job adversity, and you realize, like, oh, holy hell, this is actually a little harder than I thought. Right? The perfect example of that is Nathaniel Hackett and, to a lesser extent, Russell Wilson at the end of the big game. Nathaniel Hackett, Russell Wilson at the end of the big game. Can we all agree that they blew it? Are we okay? And it's not because they missed the 64-yard field goal. That's not it. Please don't say that, oh, Gottlieb's just result. Had the field goal gone in, it didn't matter. They didn't put themselves in the proper and give themselves enough opportunities to win the game because it was just a mess. It was a lot like we had this discussion about the Tennessee Titans and having to call a timeout with 18 seconds to go because they weren't prepared. Right? They weren't prepared, had to burn their last timeout instead of getting the ball down the field and making it a inside 40 yards. Pro kickers almost never miss. Right? You can go look at the stats, and one of the reasons they felt like, hey, we're going to move the extra points back were no one missed extra points. There was years where no one missed an extra point. Then by moving it back 15 yards, now all of a sudden it's become like a mid to low 90s sort of experience. And not a 90% shot on a 40-yard field goal, you're going to win the game. So Tennessee would have won the game. Denver would have won the game. But it was complete clock mismanagement. So before I play for you what Nathaniel Hackett said, what Russell Wilson said, I'll get the thoughts of the crew. We'll all give our thoughts. I don't want to make it seem like Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson, who weren't prepared for that moment. That's the only explanation. Weren't prepared for that moment. It doesn't mean they didn't actually prepare for the moment. You're like, wait, no, it's not. Here's my outsider's perspective of Nathaniel Hackett. They talked about his dad and how he's basically born to do this job. And then the last 3 years, he was, calling plays along with Matt LaFleur for Aaron Rodgers, the best in the frickin' business, right? Now, I should point out that whether it was LaFleur or Hackett, you go back 2 years ago when they took on Tampa in the NFC Championship game, and you remember that was when Matt LaFleur chose to kick on fourth down instead of go for it. You guys remember that? NFC Championship game? And he was widely criticized. Why you got Aaron Rodgers, go for it on fourth down. And many analysts who came on this show said, I think they might have run out of plays. Like, what do you mean run out of plays? Like, you got when you're calling plays, if you ask football guys, especially NFL guys, while you're watching the play, you got to know based upon personnel grouping, and who's available, whatever, what the next play is, based upon down and distance. And there's a whole math to it. And there's a list. You don't just it's not like Madden where you're like, I didn't like that. Let's see what Madden suggests. No, you don't get that when you're in the field. You can't go formations. Let's go single back. Ooh, let's go trip. You don't get that. You got to bam. Play's done. You got to have the next play right then in the quarterback's ear. So there was a lot of talk 2 years ago that whether it was Hackett or LaFleur, and combined with Aaron Rodgers, they weren't ready. That's why they kicked it. And it wasn't just that they weren't ready on fourth down. It was that had they scored the touchdown, then they would have had to go for two, and they didn't have a 2-point play ready. Right? You got to have all these things kind of ready to go. And it's all not only based upon what your prep is and how the other team's playing and how you're playing, but also who's healthy, who's tired. There's a bunch of other factors. It's a lot. But Hackett, he's not a spring chicken. It's not like he's 15 years old. He's been doing this his entire professional life. But you know what? That was the chance at the big chair, and they blew it. I don't know who's responsible, and I don't care. But Russell Wilson has been in that situation 50 times minimum. Okay? And he seemed indecisive. Nathaniel Hackett's been in that situation in a lesser role. And the team is a reflection of the coach and the quarterback, and they were indecisive. And look, it's very reasonable for that to happen. Very reasonable. I started to tell Jason this story because Jason used to work on the Jim Rome show. I grew up listening to Jim Rome when he was on at night, okay, on a San Diego radio station. It was a wild show, right? At night, they do it from sports bars and whatever, and some of the guys would call in, some people would be there, and it was wild. But I grew up listening to Rome. And then, of course, he became this mainstream, had this cult following. He was nationally syndicated. He was the biggest thing in the business. And I can remember distinctly 15 years or so ago getting a call, hey, do you want to fill in for Jim Rome's TV show? And I was like, are you kidding? Yeah. Living in Connecticut, but he filmed it in Orange County where I'm from. Got a chance to see my parents, my friends, and I get to fill in for Jim Rome. It was amazing. And how I believed in my whole life. I remember being on the flight thinking this is my whole life. I thought I'll play basketball and then I either coach basketball or I do this. And I was built for this, right? A same mentality, Southern California guy. I know the show. I know how it works. I know blah, 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 blah. I watch the show on TV. It's great. It's easy. And then you sit in the meeting. You're like, okay, I got this take. I got that take. They're like, don't worry. We write it for you. And you get up there and all of a sudden you got to read somebody else's writing that's written for somebody else's voice. You're like, oh my, this is kind of harder than I thought. Right? This is live. 6 to 7 minutes was the opening rant where you're just reading off teleprompter takes that have been written out for you and some that you have tweaked and made. And you're like, and you're even thinking in your dressing room, you're like, I'm going to nail this. Then you get on and the words don't come out right. You're going too fast. Your pacing's off. Or you do a live interview. You're like, dude, I do interviews every day on radio. It's just different when you're in a bigger chair. When you're the guy. And I think most people have done that in their lives. I could do that. I'm ready for that. I'm sure you can. But there's something to the experience of having done it. There's something to how you prepare, how you watch, how you ready yourself, how you calm yourself, how you project, how you gather people. And I will also tell you that when you're not ready for that moment, and that moment comes, especially in a team setting, but it's no different in business, and you get that, or you stand up in a meeting, a boardroom, guys, I got an idea. Everybody stops. All right, let's hear what Doug's idea is. And then you're not truly prepared to flush it out and answer all the questions. You've seen this on Shark Tank. People think they're ready to go in on Shark Tank. They get asked questions. They're like, dude, get out of here. You're not ready for this. Right? That was the Broncos yesterday. I mean, look, there's other things that they fumbled the 1 yard line twice. I'm having flashbacks of Melvin Gordon against the Tennessee Titans fumbling at the 1 yard line a couple years ago with the Chargers. Anybody else have that one? Anyway. But they fumbled the 1 yard line twice. Russell Wilson was not himself. I don't know if it's the booing or a new team or the fact they hadn't played in the preseason or maybe all of it. But I mean, I mean, he hit Adams in the face mask with a ball. Like the Seahawks had 2 gift interceptions that they dropped. We know why they play defense, right? You can't catch either of those interceptions. But there was a lot of odd things in that game. Most Seattle games in Seattle in front of the 12, they get wild. They're all odd games. And they all end up, as they did last night, with Russell Wilson running around trying to make a play. Only difference was he was wearing a white uniform, not a home team uniform. But the biggest takeaway is Russell has been in that situation about 50 times over. And he seemed lost. Nathaniel Hackett has been in that situation in other roles 50 times over, maybe 100 times over. And his team seemed lost. It's your offense. It's your team. And do we call a timeout, not call a timeout? What do we run here? Do we kick? Do we not? Like all of that confusion, that's coaching, that's quarterback play, and that's the big moment and not being ready for it. Now, this is not me saying that's the end-all, be-all. This is who Nathaniel Hackett is, or this is who Russell Wilson is when he's on this team and he's not under the guise and the guide of Pete Carroll and his staff. No, that's their performance stating that. It also is not the end-all, be-all. You can evolve, you can prepare, you can learn from your mistakes, but it does send a message to everybody else on your sideline. I don't know if Nathaniel Hackett's ready for this thing. There have been over 150, 200, maybe even 1,000 great coordinators that are not great head coaches. And there have been guys that are not great coordinators. They're great head coaches. Because the role is different. But how your team plays in the most important moments of a football game, their ability to prepare, get everybody know what they're doing, and execute, that's coaching. That's quarterback play. And they failed last night. Nathaniel Hackett explained his decision after the game by saying this.
Obviously, I wish we would have gotten a lot closer, but it put us in that weird spot there because we were in the field goal range, but we were on that 4th down situation. Didn't think we were going to get that many yards, so I thought it was a great job by Javonte, and we just made the decision. We want to take our shot there on that one. No, I was happy he got that one out of the way. I thought, he had plenty of distance on that one and just thought that we were going to be able to make that. I have confidence in him, and if we have to put him in that situation again, I think he'll be able to make it.
I understand. Like, look, my field goal kicker, McManus, has a big leg. It's not distance, but 64-yard field goal is, 1 of 8. Not great. Here's Russell Wilson on the 4th and 5 decision.
I believe in Coach Hackett. I believe in what we're doing, and believe in everything. And, anytime you can try to find a way to make a play on 4th and 5, that's great too. But also, I don't think it was the wrong decision. I think he can make it. Obviously, in hindsight, we didn't make it. But if we were in that situation again, I wouldn't doubt whatever he decided. We said, where can you make it from tonight? And he said 46 left hash. I think we were on the 46, right? 46 left hash. That was before the drive, and we got it there. Unfortunately, it didn't go in. I think he has a leg for it for sure.
Nobody's questioning whether he has a leg for it. Just the distance is, every inch that you're off, the further out you are, it becomes a greater and greater distance. I think it was a bust in terms of their prep. Again, it's not even that they went for the field goal. It just looked like a mess out there. Their indecisiveness, their lack of understanding what should be done.